A, B, and C. That's at the social optimum. Now, at the location where firms would produce themselves, if you left them alone, price is now P star, quantity is Q star. So price is lower, right? Consumers actually kind of like this when they go to the store because prices are lower. The gas tax raises your gas price, makes everybody better off as a society, but you have to pay more at the gas pump. So then you trade off your inner social welfare maximizing halo wearing individual versus, latte and gas tank or just gas tank. So price, quantity, so consumer surplus is bigger here, A, B, F, and G. Producer surplus here is now going to be difference between price over quantity above the supply, C, D, E, and H. And external costs are now, since we're producing out to Q star, it's over the range of production times marginal external cost per unit, D plus K plus L. I don't want to write that down, though, right? Because that's going to make the deadweight loss calculation tricky. It's correct, right? But we also realize that the distance between the origin and this point right here is exactly the distance between these two curves. So over the range from 0 to Q star, this area DKL is exactly equal to the area D, E, F, G, H, and J, right? So minus D, E, F, G, H, J. Minus D, E, F, G, H, and J. I'm going to do my canceling here. So minus D plus D, E cancels out, F cancels out, G cancels out, H cancels out, J doesn't. A plus B plus C minus J. So at the P heart, Q heart, you get A plus B plus C in terms of social welfare. At the Q star, P star, you get A plus B plus C minus J. Right? So the deadweight loss here is this triangle right here. Right, but note this, the private consumer surplus here actually goes up at the private optimal thing, which is why consumers fight things that are actually good for society, right? It's interesting. Political economy is awesome. Makes life interesting. So consumers plus B plus F plus G. So here we've got C, D. So these guys lose B, C, D, E. They lose F. They gain H. And we increase damages by G, H, J. So if you sum these all up, it comes out to minus J. Did that answer the question? Excellent. Follow-up question, yeah? Yeah, you want to see that one? All right, let's do a positive externality. This is B's, right? If you want, or I can just show you the generic, whatever you wish. The generic? I think it's better to see how I think about it than how the GSI thinks about it because I'm writing the exam. The GSIs are all smarter than I am, that's clear, but they don't write the exams. Okay. So positive externality. What you want to leave yourself is you want to leave yourself a little bit of room below the x-axis. So quantity, price. Same thing here. You have a supply curve, and I'm starting this one up from the origin a little bit because I'm going to shift it down in a second. All right. Demand. So this market left alone will produce Q star at a price of P star. Now the problem here is if this is the market for honey or bees or whatever it is, right? Bees by honey producers have all kinds of positive externalities on the pollination of fruit trees. Especially if you live in California, pollination is a really important service since we grow almonds out the wazoo and all kinds of other stuff that needs pollination services. So the problem here is there's a positive externality in the sense that bees don't just create honey, but they also create these pollination services that the beekeeper doesn't get the benefit from, but society gets it, meaning the person with the apple orchard next door gets these benefits. So the marginal external costs here are actually negative. Right? So a negative cost is a benefit, or a negative benefit is a cost. But the way to draw this, or the way I like to draw it, is I just draw my marginal external cost as a negative line. And we're going to again assume it's flat. So if this here is 0, before when I had a negative externality, it was a positive cost. Now that I have a positive externality, I have a negative cost. So my marginal external cost is just below the horizontal line right here. So the private costs here are actually higher than the social costs, right? Because now I'm adding a negative number to my positive private cost, which will shift down the supply curve by the amount of the marginal external cost, right? So to pick that distance, and I picked it just right, supply plus marginal external cost, and just remember that marginal external cost is negative, so that shifts down the supply curve by this marginal external cost. And the optimal quantity now, Q heart, P heart, price is lower, right, and more should be produced, which is the exact opposite from a negative externality where price is higher and less should be produced, right? Makes sense. Positive goes in one direction, negative goes in the other direction. Okay, you want to see welfare? Yeah, I was afraid you were going to say that. I hate that one. Consumer surplus, producer surplus, external costs, and welfare. Q heart versus Q star, and then we can talk about the change. Now I'm writing with my fingernails. Let's see, they get us, luxury, a box at Chalk. All right. So deep breath, right? I frankly right now don't know how this is going to go, right? This is not how I operate. I don't remember what the picture looks like. I remember how to do it, right? So I just follow my rules. So I do the exact same thing I expect you to do. So I'm going to start with Q star, P star, and I'm going to think of some pizza slices I'm going to need. So I'm going to think about ahead of time, well, this one might be a useful one, maybe this one, maybe that one. Not really 100% sure, so let's label some things. A, B, C, how about D, E, this one looks good, F, G, how about H here? Oh yeah, how about down here? X, Y. Okay, so this is my label for these little boxes. Okay, Q star, P star. Let's go. Consumer surplus. This is price. This is quantity. This is demand. A, B, E, G. It's got to be consumer surplus. Producer surplus at the same one, right? Producer surplus is going to be, well, let's think about, oops, did I screw up already? No, that's right. All right. Beauty. Okay. Every time. So you get the same sort of aha moment, like, oh my God, I screwed up. How does this happen? Yes, it happens this way. Are you ready? This is the one with the negative producer surplus, which is really annoying, right? So P heart, Q heart. producer surplus is the difference between your private marginal cost or supply and price over the range of production. So you're producing from here to here. Your private marginal cost, or as we know it as supply right here, goes from here to here. So from here to here, producer surplus is going to be the distance between price, supply, over the range of this part of production. So it's definitely going to be C, but we're going beyond that now, right? So we're going further out to Q heart right here. So here now price is below supply, so you're getting minus E, minus G, minus H in producer surplus as well. Would producers ever do this? No. Minus G, what did I say? Minus EGH in producer surplus. Right? Producers would never do this voluntarily. It's not privately optimal, which is why they're not producing at Q heart, they're producing at Q star. That maximizes their profits. Now, we've got to think about the external costs here, right? These external costs are good things. They're benefits now. So at Q heart, this is the negative cost or the benefit you accrue from production for each unit. Q heart is the number of units you're producing at the social optimum. So you could X plus Y in terms of external benefits, right? X plus Y is not a really useful graphical way to look at it here, so we do the same trick as before. We just look up here and see if there's areas that have the same area as X plus Y. So the distance between the X-axis and my marginal external cost, sum to pinky right here, right? Sum to pinky is exactly the distance between these two curves here over the range from 0 to Q heart. So this DEGFH area right here is total external benefits of producing Q heart units to society. So these are good things now, right? So plus D, plus E, plus F, plus G, plus H. My handwriting is a little bit squiggly here. Okay, so let's cancel some things out here. So E cancels out, G cancels out, H cancels out. So we've got A, B, C, D, E, F, G in welfare. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Isn't that beautiful how that worked out just by accident? Okay. Stop showing off maths. Q star, right? This is what firms produce privately. This is P star. This is the price they would charge if left alone. So at this high price and this low quantity, consumer surplus is just going to be A. Producer surplus is going to be the difference between price and supply, private marginal cost of production. So it's over the range of production you're now producing out to Q star, so it's B plus C. And the external benefit, or negative external cost now, is again, per unit, the marginal external cost over the range of production, which is out to Q star. That's now just X, right? And X has an equivalent on this picture here, which is just going to be D plus E, right? So you get D plus E. So you get A plus B plus C plus D plus E. So at Q heart, you have A, B, C, D, E, and F and G. At Q star, you just have A, B, C, D, and E. So you're not getting F and G anymore. So deadweight loss is minus F minus G, this little triangle right here. Right, consumers lose from a positive externality, minus B, minus E, minus G. Producers, they lose, so they have C. They continue to have C. They gain B. Gain B. You could keep on going, right? It has to add up. Let's do this one first. D plus E. These guys, we get F plus G plus H. An additional external. I'm doing this in the reverse. Be clear, Max. Don't freak people out, 4 days before the final exam. Really unfair. This is the good thing. This is the bad thing, right? So what do you lose by doing the bad thing, right? So consumers, at the good thing, have A, B, E, and G. Now they have A. So by doing the wrong thing, consumers lose B, E, and G. Firms, at the good thing, have C, minus E, minus G, minus H. At the wrong thing, they have B plus C, right? So they have C in both. They gain B, and they no longer lose E, G, and H, right? So they gain E, G, and H. Under the good thing, we have D, E, F, G, and H. Under the bad thing, we have D and E. So we lose F, G, and H in terms of external benefits here, and then you can cancel things out, and they should add to F and G, right? So the H here cancels, the G here cancels, the B here cancels, and the E here cancels, so you're left with G and F, which is exactly right. Right, so it has to add up the right way from both directions. If it adds up to different things, you've done something wrong. So that's a good check. Did that answer the question? All right, excellent. Follow-up questions or new questions? Yes? So the deadweight loss from not producing the socially optimal amount, right? So you get a deadweight loss from leaving firms and individuals to make the choices they would make, right? A deadweight loss arises both for the negative and the positive externality. In the negative externality, they produce more than a socially optimal, right? In the positive externality, they produce too little. So in both cases, by not producing the socially optimal amount, there's deadweight loss. So you would use the same term, right? Because in both things, there is this deadweight loss of F and G, right, which is a negative dollar number, and for the externality, the negative externality, if this were positive, was this unit H right here, right? So that was a deadweight loss there. So they're both dollar losses in terms of welfare. Yeah. I can do that. Did you have a follow-up question? Pretty much. I mean, I can come up with 100 other questions, but for the final, yes, right? That's the only time you'll see negative producer surplus. So maybe let me just erase this one and show you the generic version of negative producer surplus, right? Why would this ever arise? Do you want to take a picture first? Zoom on in. You want me to smile? There you go. I'm also happy to take a good picture, and then if I have it together enough to actually post this online, I can post it on BSpace. Hold on, I'm going to stand in your way. There's that one. Got it. I don't know how people live without smartphones. I'm joking. Life was actually better without smartphones, I think. You read books. No, I'm so wrong. Okay, stop talking and wasting our time. Here we go. Quantity, price. This goes back to one of the very few sort of figure it out yourself type of problems I gave you. Right? So what we showed is, or what I argued is, if you have a perfectly competitive market and you let firms produce where they want to produce, they'll produce at P star and Q star. What I argued is, if you shove firms towards producing less than the perfectly competitive output, right, what would they do is right? If this were the price right here, if they produce less than the perfectly competitive ad firm and you charge this price right here, you would get this triangle here in deadweight loss, right? This is the basic notion behind the deadweight loss in taxation, monopoly, or anything that reduces output below the socially optimal level. There was no negative consumer or producer surplus here at all. But the trick, or not the trick, the more tricky part to actually show is what if you somehow force firms to produce more than the perfectly competitive output, and you force them to charge the price that consumers are willing to pay, right? So you need to do two things. You somehow need to get at the lower price and the higher output at the same time. So this is, ultimately never going to be sustainable, but what if you could do this? So then the issue here arises if you're going to do the consumer-producer surplus exercise. Right, at P star Q star, if I do my pizza slices A, B, C, D, E, and F here, at P star Q star, consumer surplus is just A. Producer surplus is just going to be B plus C. We've done that many, many times, right? So welfare is A, B, and C. But what is producer surplus? Producer surplus is the difference between the price the firm receives and what it costs it to produce the last unit of output. Right? So if price is greater than what it costs you to produce, producer surplus is a positive number. If price is lower than what it costs you to produce, then producer surplus is a negative number. No rational firm would produce anywhere where producer surplus is negative in the long run, right? Because you're losing money. But if you're in a system where the government can force you to produce that, now we can look at the consumer surplus at Q prime P prime, well, it's the area above price below demand, so it's going to be A, B, D, and E. And here comes what you actually asked, and I ran around in circles for 10 minutes now. We're worried about what's the difference between this, right, and this. So here, up until this point right here, price is above marginal cost of production. So C is a positive amount of producer surplus or profits, if you're in the long run that the firm gets. So this here is C. But if I push beyond this point right here, and I go to the right, what happens? Costs are higher than the price you get per unit. So as I go across, for each unit I sell, I get the same price, but my costs keep rising. So now it's the difference between price and cost. Now the price is lower than cost. It's a negative number. So we go out until Q prime. So it's D plus E plus F, but it's negative. It's a loss. So it's minus D, minus E, minus F. So if I add those two up now, then you get E cancels out, D cancels out. You get A, B, C, minus F. Right? So F here is going to be the deadweight loss from producing more than the socially optimal amount. So the trick here is just to remember that the fundamental thing, consumer surplus, is the difference between demand, or what your marginal willingness to pay is, and price over the range of consumption. If for some reason price is higher than marginal willingness to pay, you might have negative consumer surplus, but there somebody would have to force you to consume. Right? For producer surplus, and it's harder to think about that, except for in a college textbook setting, of course. But the point here is, for producers, again, producer surplus is the difference between price and cost of production. If cost is greater than price, then producer surplus is going to be negative. Did that answer the question? Okay. Yeah. Stack tax. Yeah. Correct. Right? So let's say you have a free market. The city records which apartments are currently being rented. They put a price ceiling on rental apartments, and they don't allow landlords to use their apartments for own usage, right? So owner occupation. They force landlords, because they rented these apartments before, to continue renting the apartments, but now at a lower price. That would be a scenario where you could get that. In a free market society, this barely ever happens, but you do see weird rent control schemes like that sometimes. More questions? Yes. Yes. The welfare consequences and how it works? I would never ask you a tax on a monopolistic competition question, so I'm happy to show you, but that's brutal, okay? Because what happens with the tax, I'm going to tell you that I'm not wussing out here, but what the tax would do, it shifts up your marginal cost, and it shifts up your average cost. And you're drawing this fragile equilibrium at the end where you get this demand curve, and then you're shifting the average and marginal cost curve up, which shifts your optimal production around, and then anything could happen. I mean, there's no graduate student assistant in the world who would want to grade this one. It's a really interesting question, right? What happens when you tax these things? But the answer to that is it really depends on what your demand curve looks like and what your cost curves look like. So there's a lot of interesting industrial organization questions there, but way too hard to draw on the exam. So you can take that one off your list. I'm going to show you what a monopolistically competitive firm does, though, because that is important. So remember, a monopolistically competitive firm essentially has a monopoly over a product, right? The only way it's different from a regular monopolist is that there are close substitutes for that particular product. So a monopolistically competitive firm is one for toothpaste or yogurt or anything like that, where you own your brand of whatever it is, toothpaste or yogurt, but competitors can come up with qualitatively similar products. They just put a different label on it. So if somebody comes up with a new product, can I come up with something truly ridiculous? Not today. Oh yeah, my favorites. So there's a Kentucky Derby this weekend where really wealthy people make really poor horses run around a track and dress up in really expensive clothes and take selfies. It's also maybe the least diverse crowd I've ever seen on the internet. But so I saw a picture of a guy with a diamond-encrusted cell phone that got me thinking a little bit about the state of the world. But so let's say you come up with a diamond-encrusted cell phone, right? There's a market for it out there, apparently.